quite literally, kids in the streets brought about the end of that war. Kids in the streets got Lyndon Johnson out of office. Kids in the streets got that war stopped. And I think the potential threat of kids in the streets will bring about the amnesty finally. I think Jimmy Carter perceives that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on a little bit. You mentioned MASH, one current show. Is there anything else on TV currently that you like, that you can abide with?
Well, oddly enough, most of it's on PBS. I'm Monty Python I watch, and Doctor Who from England. And
it's interesting you should mention that.
It is?
Yes, and that PBS is supplied with an overabundance, perhaps, of British shows. What do you think of British TV?
British TV, I've just come back a few months ago from England, and I'm always amazed and stunned and interested and fascinated by English television. I was there in July, and during July, there are virtually no talk shows on, very few entertainment shows. It's mostly sports, all day long. It's soccer, and it's cricket, and it's the Wimbledon tennis matches, and it's the horse racing and golf. You turn it on, and that's all you see all day long. And English comedy series are filled with racism, terrible racism and sexism and bigotry. It's amazing. And when you point it out to the English, they say, oh yes, well, you know, it's amusing. It's amusing. No one means anything by it. And all over London you see written on the walls, wogs go home. Well, you know, wogs is you know what a wog is?
No, not familiar with that.
Oh, wog is the...
My English is...
Yeah, wog is the English equivalent of nigger. It's a very old word. It's based on the word gollywog, which was a little black doll, like a Raggedy Ann, except it's not quite. It's like an Aunt Jemima kind of doll. And they in India, they called the Indians, when they were over there, the Hindus, they called them wogs. And it's the equivalent of nigger. And you see it all over the walls. Wogs go home. And they do these things on the television. You know, you look at it, you know, my God, how did they get away? And the sexism is incredible. There's a series called Get Some In, which is about the national service, which is the equivalent of our the draft over here. Mm-hmm. And it's about a top sergeant in the Air Force, I think it is, and his barracks full of young Air Force men during the 40s. And they've got one guy who they keep calling a poofta, fag. They make fun of him because he has slightly effeminate mannerisms. He apparently isn't gay, but they do that. There's another one who's clearly a Jewish prototype. There's another one, and at one point I remember the line that just blew me away. I mean, my hair stood on end. Was this guy is talking about getting posted to Siam or something, some Oriental place like that, and he's talking about the women there. He's saying, "Oh, I remember them chinky bints," meaning Oriental women, and it's the equivalent of saying a slant-eyed gash. I mean, that's what it is, and I certainly didn't hear that. But on the other hand, they have dramatic series that are fascinating to watch. So you've got highs and lows. We get the best stuff over here, of course. Mm-hmm. You don't get that other stuff.
Let's move on a little bit.
Was that a boring answer?
No, it was a fascinating answer.
You're going to cut that out of the final film.
I was going to go all the way to Britain just to watch their TV.
Didn't say something
I don't
rotten,
think I will.
Right?
No, not yet.
They stole the Grail, folks.
In your book, The Glass Teeth, you back out, if you will, the United States press and the media coverage of news events. I take it your opinion hasn't improved any.
Well, no, it has improved. I think during the period in which I wrote those columns, which was the late 60s, there was a definitely right-wing bias to news reportage, but that was because they were getting most of their information from the administration. I mean, that's the source they go to. And I think it interesting, I mean, this is not said to toot any horn that I may have, but I think it's interesting that here was I, a really low-level TV commentator for a Pisher newspaper in L.A., writing about Watergate, though I didn't know the name of it. I mean, I didn't know it was Watergate. Writing about that clearly there was something going on 8-9 years before it was ever revealed, and no one else picked up on it. No television network ever did an investigative journalism thing about why is John Mitchell trying to kill dissent in this country? Why is Richard Nixon and Lyndon Johnson, why are they so determined that kids not speak up?
I'm curious, what were your sources? Was it just
I had no sources, just what was happening. I was just watching what was going down. I was seeing, I was being bugged. My house was bugged. My telephones were bugged by Ronald Reagan. I called in a search service, one of those sweep services. They swept the house, and they said, there's an enormous in your line, you're being tapped. I called some friends of mine in the Internal Security Division in Colorado who have access to all of this stuff, and I said, will you find out who's tapping me? It was Ronald Reagan. I was on his subversive list. And I'm about as subversive as this bottle of Perrier water,
Well, that's foreign, so we...
That's foreign, right, so it's obviously subversive. It was obvious that there was something going on, something big, something that had its tentacles into every aspect of our life, and no one picked up on it. Where was David Brinkley? Where was Walter Cronkite, Papa Walter, the trustworthy man? Nobody did anything. They would take newsreel footage of kids being beaten up on the streets, and no one do anything about it. There was no outrage. There was no network editorializing. That's because, well, we have to be fair. We have to be fair. Fairness doctrine is you can show thousands of Cossacks beating the crap out of kids on college campuses, but you're not allowed to say that may be bad. That is not equal time as far as I'm concerned. As I've said in my book, equal time is not served by the president having prime time access to the three major networks and his opposition getting a soapbox on a corner. That ain't equal time. There's a dormouse in this bottle.
The French always do that. Mr. Ellison, or Harlan, let's get into this.
Or whoever the hell you are.
One way or the other. Isaac, what about your own past experience in TV now? You're touted as being a fantastic screenwriter for a number of television shows such as Flying Nun, Outer Limits, Star Trek, which I promised I wouldn't mention.
You are a pismeyer. You're a sneaky little pismeyer. Yes, I wrote a Flying Nun segment. Yes, I did.
Yes, I'm not complaining about that. You even wrote a Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea segment.
Yes, and you'll notice that both of those do not have my name on them. They have the name Cordwainer Bird on them. Cordwainer Bird has flown 3 times. Once on the Flying Nun, once on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and once on the Star Lost, the series I created. Cordwainer Bird is my way of saying to the world, they have taken my creation and they have messed it over. They have taken away a healthy child and brought back a thalidomide baby. And bird, as in for the, or and when you see that on the screen, that means that the work that appeared was not mine. It was somebody else's. So when we talk about me doing a Flying Nun, you see, we sound like, boy, it can't be that big. I mean, Flying Nun, boy, that was really stupid shit. No, you knew what you were doing.
I knew what I was doing, yes.
I mean, we're not going to let you get away with that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, I heard you, obviously, I've heard you speak about your scripts for these shows. I know there's, I've never heard you say that any script ended up on the air that you liked.
Several of them did. There were 2 Outer Limits scripts, Demon with a Glass Hand and Soldier. Demon got on considerably better than Soldier, but that was just by chance.
Robert Culp, wasn't it?
Yeah, I won a Writers Guild Award for that script, as a matter of fact. And
you did win awards, that's right. I have to mention that sometime. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I have the credentials. I mean, for anybody watching who doesn't know who the hell this turkey is, I have credentials. I got a lot of awards, and I'm listed in Who's Who, and nuts to you. I had 7 Burke's Laws, 4 with my name on it, 3 with other people's names on it, because I didn't want to argue about the credits. But those 7 Burke's Laws, I was very pleased with. It was great fun writing Burke's Law. Those are the only ones, though.
You mentioned the Star Lost. Can we get into that a little bit?
Do we really have to?
Well, let's just mention...
Let me put it this way. Let me sum it for you this way. I created a series called The Star Lost. It was done by 20th Century Fox and CTV Studios in Canada. It was done with a production company called Glen Warren Productions. They ruined it. I walked off the series. I lost $93,000 worth of royalties. I'm delighted to have lost it. When I think about $93,000, all I can see in my mind is a big nickel, so it's not important. It is all in detail. The entire story, the entire 8 months of this horror story is all in one article called Somehow I Don't Think We're in Kansas, Toto. And it can be found in one of my books called Phoenix Without Ashes. It's the introduction to the novelized version of that script I wrote, which I won another Writers Guild Award for. The original script, not the aired version, but the original actual script won the award. and it's in there, and it's in detail. And it's not that I'm trying to be subcutaneous or obfuscatory about this. It's not that I'm trying to hide it. I want to hide anything from you. It's that I'm bored with talking about it.
Well, the reason I brought it up is, as you said, you lost $93,000 worth of royalties. Not too many writers will do that. They won't walk out on something. They won't...
Well, money doesn't mean anything to me.